Here's some legal stuff so I don't get a copyright strike. Anyway, in the UK, I think we've had some pretty cool TV shows over the years. You can tell because Netflix will usually steal the rights for the US version if it's good enough. But I mean, where else are you gonna watch members of the public get chased through Mr. Basri's in Blackpool by former MA5 members? Anywhere else? I don't think so. Jokes aside, I like TV. YouTube and other online content is cool and all, but with how retention focused most sites have become this last decade, it's undoubting that there's just some concepts you can't do because the runtime would be too long for most people. I might get shot for saying this, but watching concepts that would otherwise be squandered as a YouTube video, done well and with a proper runtime on TV, feels like a breath of fresh air whenever it happens. Besides, advertisers love spending big money on TV, so it means they get to do stuff like this while my paycheck looks like this. If you think about it, me and the BBC are quite similar. We both make zero profit and we're both publicly funded. They have the TV license, I have a student loan which I use to buy editing software. That aside, yes, this does mean that the BBC were able to rent out an entire castle in Scotland, cram 22 complete strangers in there, and make them play Among Us for £120,000. I mean, it's better than spinning a wheel to not freeze to death in the winter, so I'll bite. The Traitors is a UK reality TV show produced by Studio Lambert, who you might know for creating the original, superior version of The Circle, Gogglebox, and the most family-friendly show I've ever seen. Essentially, they make a lot of good shows, and they make a lot of money doing it. It's pretty obvious that this show is in good hands from second one, and it means we can actually get into talking about it now. So without further ado, The Traitors UK. It's based on a Dutch programme of the same premise, which ran for 8 episodes back in 2021. If you've seen some other shows, chances are the premise may ring a bell. A group of strangers are taken to a remote location, and each day must complete tasks as a team to increase their prize pot, up to a maximum of 120,000. Think Crystal Maze for a rough frame of reference here. There's nothing beyond that as of this first season, so everyone still in the game needs to work together in these moments if they want to take home the maximum amount of money possible, regardless of what role they're playing. And then it's Among Us time. Of the 22 contestants, 3 are selected by the host to be the traitors. Each night after all the contestants leave and go their separate ways, the traitors will meet in secret and decide on someone to kill and remove from the game. The remaining contestants have a way to fight back though. Each evening everyone will have a meeting at the round table, and will discuss who they have suspicions on being a traitor. Weakest link style, they'll then all vote who they wish to send home, and the person who receives the most votes will be made to reveal what role they were before also leaving. So who wins? Well, once the group is small enough, they can elect to end the game themselves. If any traitors remain at that point, they will win the prize money, whereas the faithful get nothing. If there are no traitors left, prize money is shared evenly among the remaining contestants. Later on, there's also 2 additional mechanics added, those being a shield that makes you immune to being murdered for a single night, and the ability for traitors to try and recruit a faithful into their ranks in place of murdering that night, although this person can just say no. And that's it. Faithful need to weed out the traitors, although they're never made aware as to how many there are at any given point, and traitors need to try and coast through until the end of the game undetected. It should also go without saying, but the traitors can't kill themselves to my knowledge, so each day they only have 1 chance to be eliminated, whereas the faithful are subjected to 2. Now, you might ask one crucial thing. How would you be able to tell who a traitor is? You don't. They meet in secret, so there's no chance of anyone seeing them then. The only way they can feasibly give the game away will be openly talking traitor business in the open and getting overheard, or acting suspicious. So basically, most accusations fly on flimsy evidence strung together if it's not an actual traitor. And yes, because of probability, most people voted out at the round table will tend to be innocent. So yeah, just like Among Us. It is a social deduction game at the end of the day, and if someone is able to keep their cool and not be caught in a lie, then by all accounts there's a high chance they can take the money home as a traitor. The faithful can only levy what they know, and the way that can develop throughout the first series, and the potential ways it can grow in ones yet to air really interests me. The amount of speculation you could generate solely on the fact someone is simply still in the game is insane. Think for a second. Are they a traitor, or not seen as enough of a threat to have been killed yet? Could it be to do with who they suspect being correct? Or are they being kept in because they could levy that as a red herring? When you layer additional things on top of that, such as friendships, past and current jobs and drama, purely by having a diverse range of people there, the part of the show does just write itself. And write itself it does. In between each round table, the contestants are just given time to meander around the castle, talk and hang out. During this time, people are free to discuss theories, and traitors can try and plant seeds of doubt or divert attention away from themselves. And to be fair to them, it's really good. And you know it is because the US have their own version. Back on topic. Of course no one wants to get out, money is nice. But I think it's quite interesting in these scenes to see the contrast of the faithful earnestly trying to find out the truth versus the traitors trying to find enough scraps to make something seem plausible enough. It gets pretty amusing at points. Now, our version here ran for 12 episodes, each for 1 hour, and I left my time watching the show genuinely surprised at how much I like this series. You have the challenge segments, in which everyone just switches off their suspicion detectors for an hour or so and works together. And it's smart. If you think about it, they're just team building exercises with a little incentive. Think about it. These are when everyone is on the same team. It doesn't matter if the person next to you is a traitor or not. Both of you want that money, so you need to work together and cast aside those issues you may have to do your best here. Consider it all lighter fluid. I guarantee a fair few people would apply for the show in the intent of not making any meaningful relationships. I mean, there's a solid few cases where going in with that mindset and acting on it will make it pretty difficult for you to be caught out. But in those moments when you have people cheering on for your success or going out and helping you in a challenge, that might just be grounds to break past that barrier and start letting more people get along. Which unfortunately makes it all the more heartbreaking or spicy whenever people get voted out in the latter part of the season. Seriously, following each nightly murder they all slowly trickle in to have breakfast, and as the room gets more full you can feel the tension start to build as you just know one person isn't going to be coming in through the door. For added points you find out exactly at the same moment that the faithful do who's gone, and it is just mwah. It really is great stuff. Of course, in the downtime between challenges, the castle essentially becomes conspiracy central, and as a viewer who not only knows who the traitors are, but also gets to hear everyone's thoughts through cutaways, it leads to some pretty good moments of television. I'm not aiming to spoil too much, as you should absolutely watch the series yourself, but there's some excellent moments of dramatic irony when you watch people dismissing theories that are correct, or making theories based on nothing that get taken as fact. It also helps that the cast is really diverse in age, occupation, otherwise you name it. While yes, part of the show is just having them at each other's throats or at the very minimum on edge, it's really interesting to see this melting pot of people interact, the ways their reactions to information vary between one another, and especially how those diverse walks of life end up being applied within the context of the game. Again, I have no doubt calling this show the Among Us game show does it some detriment, but considering how similar in premise half the show is to the game, the way it is executed goes above and beyond what you might initially expect. But yeah, it also has its issues. The main one being down to sheer probability. The show starts with 19 faithful and 3 traitors. At the round table, who do you think is more likely to get voted out? And I get it, that's the idea, have the ratio of traitors to faithful get more even as the series goes on, so that tension naturally escalates with each episode. 100% that's the right call because that's what keeps people watching. However, that means you're bound to sit through multiple roundtable meetings where you watch a faithful be voted out, sometimes in a row, and at points on really flimsy evidence. But I'd argue that's more an issue with the show format instead of the contestants, because in the roundtable meetings, which are a pre-scheduled thing, someone has to go no matter what, and flimsy evidence, no matter how unsure you may be, is still evidence. And if someone's got to go, and that's the only clue you've got, you may just have to run with it, as frustrating as I'm sure that is to some of us at home. That's something I 100% think should be improved on for the second season, because once you sit down and watch a few episodes of the show, it becomes abundantly clear that it's quite easy for a traitor to avoid giving the game away, and of the 4 of them that there are in the UK season, I'd argue only 1 of them gets detected on their own mistakes, and that falls entirely to them. The traitors need to get a few more chances to be found out, or at the very least give the faithful a few scraps to chew on. I mean hell, they highlight this concept perfectly in the later part of the season a single time. A member of the traitors needs to perform a specific action on someone to mark that night's target. And it's tense, it's cool, they play Murder on the Dance Floor, which is really fitting and a really good song. And the setup's great. The faithful analyse that night's events after being told someone was murdered in the open, and while it's all going on, because of the sudden nature of this twist, it forces the traitors to actually speak in the open. Should the whole show be like this? No, I think the downtime segments are quite nice. But I think in order to stop the show getting frustrating at points for some people, I wouldn't mind seeing it a tiny bit more. Like, I entirely get why they do it sparingly. It is a really good way to intermittently raise the stakes, and I think that mild change to the format would be nice, even if it's only by 1 or 2 more times per series. Don't get me wrong, a lot of the show is good, but when the faithful are essentially running on nothing in the lead up to and during a roundtable, it's easily the weakest part of the show, and having that occur for multiple episodes in a row does certainly lead to a lull in quality towards the middle of the series. But if you were to throw a single one of these sections with a similar setup into the next season to break things up when the producers have a feeling it might be getting a bit flat, then I think that is what will put the second series leagues and bounds above the first. It may just be me, but I think that one change would really do a lot. Or some other change to break up multiple instances of faithful being voted out in a row. And I think the best example I can get of logic that will really make you bang your head in this show is no worse than in episode 2, where in an admittedly smart but kind of fucked up decision by a traitor, they begin to spread suspicion over someone who's a faithful not toasting a glass when everybody else did. Which, you know, in the outset, not the worst thing to spread suspicion on. It just so happens that person was missing an arm on the side that their glass was positioned for them, but even with that fact known, it gets them voted out. I wish I was joking! And I mean, I get it. There's a game to play. Someone had to go in that round table. But that is the most compelling thing at that point in time. And people have just arrived. There isn't going to be a mountain of suspicion against someone just yet. But I think it says something when following this instance, it becomes apparent that a lot of people purely voted for that person, either out of herd mentality, so they weren't eliminated instead, or worse yet, that was just the most compelling thing raised at that table. It goes to show there are a few cracks in the foundation that I would more than love to see plastered up for next season. Beyond that, which is definitely a bit to watch at home, a fair few of the discussions are on quite minor things. Things like, he looked away when I mentioned traitors, or you hid something from us once, so how can we trust you on literally everything else? And those things can stem into people being voted out. When there's an excessive amount of them, I could understand it. But with how suspicion tends to work in this show, barring a single exception, most people are voted out on stuff that happened within the previous 24 to 48 hours. But to their credit, beyond really bad slip-ups from the traitors, that's kind of all the faithful have to go on. And I mean, yes, there were always more faithful than traitors, so it'll be inevitable that some people will unfairly be voted out. I just hope that for this year's Season 2, the faithful get thrown a few more bones to chew on. Because beyond that, this show is really good. Again, as they get closer as a group, it gets harder to kill and vote people out, and I think it's pretty interesting that despite the constant state of paranoia some contestants are in, and the fact certain players know they're in it to screw over the others, that some sort of friendship or at the very least camaraderie appears to be formed between the group coming to the end of it. It's like an emotional rollercoaster to watch, even more so to take part in, I'd assume, but my god is it a good one! The latter series drama, particularly the final 3 episodes, is genuinely the most hooked I've been on something for a while, and the payoff was just phenomenal. Don't get me wrong, I like a good plot twist in a book, but the things that you can see just by normal people interacting can rival that in terms of entertainment tenfold if done correctly. Now, the only thing I'd ask is that Studio Lambert do take care of the contestants once the show finishes recording, as I have no doubt it'd be stressful and get to a few people. I mean, they did certainly seem to have it on lock. Someone had a panic attack during the series recording, and they did seem quite readily equipped to handle that on set. I just hope that the aftercare for people who may need it is just as good. The tension makes for good television, and I have no doubt it was a huge hit for the BBC. I just hope that those benefits weren't at the expense of the contestants' well-being. While yes, when applying for the show you can say that the contestants know what they're getting into, I think purely given the nature of the show and the potential drama that can occur as of such, that adequate care should be there post-recording for those who need it. Drama is nice and all to watch, but it's much more pleasant to watch when you know that everyone involved in the production came out the other end feeling fine. So, that's the time the BBC made Among Us into a TV show to astonishingly great results. I've tried to keep this video as spoiler-free as possible because if you can, you absolutely should watch this series. It's free on iPlayer, and I know you will play that TV license like the good citizens you are, so why not? I know people are rather critical of TV's future, but personally, I don't think it's going anywhere just yet. Plenty of production companies here in the UK have been able to make really cool and intriguing shows, even in recent history, and it's still clearly profitable for them. I mean, they got enough drone shots for a lifetime and still had a prize fund of 120k. Better yet, there's no attention deficit level editing, Subway Surfers gameplay, or sponsorship reads in sight, so they can get my view based on that alone. In all seriousness though, I personally think that if we're to keep getting well executed concepts like the Traitors, that TV still has a secure place in society for a long while yet. In the same way that YouTube became an alternative to TV, I found in this last year or so that TV is still a perfectly valid alternative to YouTube, and that the differences of each platform aren't what give one a leg up over the other, but instead allow for them to coexist and serve two different markets. And I ultimately think that's a good thing. At least, that's how it is for me. I mean, think about it really. What would you say the chances are that someone involved in the initial production saw the Among Us craze online and thought it would translate well to TV? I mean, it's not zero. And if that was the case, then goddammit, I find that cool as hell. I mean, if you think about it, isn't that kind of what Fall Guys did too? Tangent aside, we should probably wrap this up. The Traitors will not be for everyone, but if this video piqued your interest, then I would highly encourage you to give it a shot. I think that with the proper refinements, this show's subsequent seasons can be something really special. Take my word for it or not, The Traitors is easily the best thing I've seen on TV this year. Now with all that said, can I be on the second season? I mean seriously, have you seen these numbers? And welcome to the outro segment. I'm going to try and keep this one under 90 seconds. First and foremost, the support on the Pocket Camp video, you guys are mental. From the bottom of my heart, that meant the absolute world to me to see a video do that well, and hopefully this video was a worthy successor. Of course, if it was, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, it all helps out a bunch. On top of that, we swapped places in the schedule. This video was originally due to go out in the summer, but upon realising that Persona 4 was getting to be a bit even more of a big video than it was initially planned to be, we decided to swap them around just so we had a bit more time in the oven. As for why this one is coming out like a few days into summer, arguably, the short answer is that just university and a bunch of the stuff got really busy around when I wanted to work on this and just kind of got pushed to the back burner until a few things wrapped up and concluded. Last but not least, I'm recording this at the very end of editing. I've just had the draft without the outro approved by YouTube. It's all in line with copyright. Hopefully we're good on that front. If there's any weird changes that you saw throughout the video, chances are that is like some copyright claims or, you know, blocking it in countries that I had to work around, so apologies if the video got a bit like weird at points or I had to like re-edit things and paste them back in. I like to think we're good. I don't think I've got any clips that run for longer than 30 seconds, which seems to be the rule, but we'll see. And I think that's everything. So once again, thank you for the support on the last video. Any support you can show this video will be insane, and hopefully before the end of summer I'll be seeing you with the Persona 4 review. So with all that said, and all that aside, thanks for watching guys, my name's been Arabic and peace, out.